Hi, I'm Aephie, and I'm the director of the short film Mamu. It's screening here in Okinawa at Cinema at Sea.
Okay, good, good. So, this is your first film. So, why now? Why not before?
So I have been living in London for 18 years, and I didn't know I will enter the film industry. So I started as a crew. Like I work in art departments, I did set design, and I do a lot of different jobs in the crew after graduate from film school in the past 10 years. And it's just impossible for a foreigner in the UK to get the support to do a film unless you want everybody to work for free. So I didn't want to do that because I was the one had to work for free for my passion. So I wanted to find a way to do it properly. So it does take a little while to gather all the resources. Yeah, so that's why this is my first film.
But regarding the experience you had in film sets before, production designer and other capacities, did it help?
Definitely, especially in 2017-18, I got invited by the Taiwanese embassy to curate the first Taiwan Film Festival in the UK and then Iceland in the Nordic countries. I actually left Taiwan when I was 4. I didn't really grow up there, but because my identity with my father, we are always Taiwanese, and I was always curious about what is that actually mean. So when I was actually working as a curator, running a festival, trying to find a sponsor, and working in the film crew, knowing all the different crew, I realized everybody said to me like, if you want to make a film, we're gonna help you.
Okay.
But I was like, don't help me. If this is a film you also want to do, if the story is also relate to you, then let's do it together. So this film was all shot in 2.5 days with many people magical schedule in line. So it does help me to kind of appreciate that in the contemporary world, filmmakers, artists, we shouldn't, how do I say it? We should expect each other's time and find a story that we all want to tell and to respect that, no matter it's in a payment or in return, like it's just to make everybody can survive as filmmakers important to me. So yes, I hope it answered the questions.
Of course, of course. And okay, you mentioned Iceland, and as I was looking at the credits of the film, there is someone from Iceland involved in many capacities. Also, tell me a bit about him.
Yeah,
Him.
Ingvar. Yeah, so Ingvar is actually the cinematographer, also the Icelandic producer, and also the editor of the film. So we were classmates in film school back in time.
It's a guy or a girl?
Camera, like cinematographer.
No, it's a guy or a girl?
It's a guy. Yeah,
okay,
Ingvar
okay.
Hørke Gudmundsson.
Okay.
So he is my classmate, and he actually saw the journey of me as a student and then as a foreign student in the UK, and have to go through this taking care of my dad as an Alzheimer patient, the craziness around it, and at the same time he trusted me it's really weird to want to be a director, because as a director your skill is to make sure your crew understand, your cinematographer, your sound designer know what you want to say, what story you want to say. So he has been kind of on the level of like trying to make sure I don't give up this dream. And this film was done by crowdfunding, so it was the money come from the friends and then the crew, and then also the extended, we did like the people who are related to the subject. So it was the money come from both UK, Iceland, and Taiwan. Yeah.
And I guess the story is very personal. It's about your relationship with your father. Can you tell me a bit about that?
So I was a bit surprised about I will experience my father had Alzheimer in my late 20s because it's so early. I was also just a student. So
How old was he at the time?
he was like in his only late 60s, early 70s, very early. But Alzheimer is not about aging, so it's also just for me to be a little bit panicked, but because as an immigrant children, we relate to our parents a lot about our identity. So I'm a little bit worried about if my dad forgets about him, then part of me is forgotten too. So I thought it would be very interesting for me to actually make the story clear in my head. And then, of course, then 6 years later, I got a chance to make this short film. And now we are preparing the feature film. So
Based on this short?
it's like the same world, but the feature film is going to be from the daughter's perspective. And then she managed to bring her father home, but really, like, so it was kind of a road trip adventure. But the short film is on its own because I received my father's colleague sent me an old phone of him during the pandemic, because it's pandemic, everything closed down. So I suddenly received my father's phone, of Nokia phone, have the draft box. You know, like now you don't, like with smartphone you don't have draft box, but the old analog phone has a draft box. So it was the message he wrote, but didn't send to me.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, this is a standalone message. He didn't want to tell me he was ill because he knew if he told me, my youth will just stop. I will not finish my school. I will, totally become, because I think between me and my father is, I always feel like when I was kids, like he didn't give up on me, so maybe I shouldn't. So he didn't really let me know until very late. And I want to honor that memory. So I did this short film.
Okay. So does the film function as a kind of therapy? Yeah.
Definitely. I think all kind of like storytelling I just always feel like, why do we tell story when there's already so many stories existing, and then why do we need to tell from our own perspective and put all this energy to make it happen? It's definitely making the film and to have the film traveling around the world definitely healed me, because Okinawa was the place where, when I was traveling with my dad when we were kids, we fly to Okinawa and then we take the ferry back to Taiwan.
Okay.
So, but I never entered the city. We were only airport and harbor. So this film has bring me to the places that really meaningful in this journey. So I'm not quite sure about therapy because I never experienced a real professional therapy. But I guess maybe it's like that. It's like something you feel heard and then you feel seen by others and vice versa. I hope the
Okay,
audience.
and also, after a point, after your father you not understand what he is saying, so there is a problem in communication there,
Yeah.
which in the film is solved through the dreams, I guess. So tell me a bit about this whole concept.
So, as a Taiwanese, we are all mixed race. My dad didn't reveal his indigenous identity until his death, really, when I figure out later with the death certificate and all that. So, Aephie is actually an indigenous name, but I have thought Aephie is just, those like, my dad would put the English name on my passport, but I didn't know it was actually my indigenous name until much later. So when my dad was losing, like kind of like mixing up the reality and speak different languages, I realized there's a language I really truly don't understand. And it's only until later I realized, he was actually speaking indigenous language. So I want to play that kind of dilemma in the film too.
And what you just described is such a common story between Taiwanese diaspora kids like you and their parents. Like, they have secrets. They keep a lot of stuff, particularly the negative stuff. They never share with their children. Is that something that happens, or?
I think we are still, as a Taiwanese, kind of now I know a bit more about our history in the past century, like 100 years. Between my grandma and my dad, my grandma will be born in the Japanese time, and then my dad born in the 1950s, so 49. So there are all the people crossing the generation. I think we just have the unresolved trauma, but we are not one blood like Taiwan is super mixed race, so we are a little bit different from Palestinian or Jewish people who are very clear about who they are. We are all kind of a bit of this, a bit of that, so we cannot really be angry together. We cannot solve one problem with one direction. I think Taiwan now, a different group of people are still have very diverse view about who we are. So I don't know, like it's I think the only thing Taiwan have is we have this very soft kindness in our mentality, and even we are afraid of something might happen, but we always live our life, and this kind of philosophy really encouraged me. So I don't know. Like I think we have trauma, but we do live. Like slightly, we cannot be worried and angry forever. So
And tell me a bit about in the film, how did you shoot the dream scenes, the tribal, let's say, scenes? They seem a bit different than the rest. Like, the rest is more realistic. This goes to another place. Can you tell me a
yeah.
bit about
So the film has three parts, which is like one part is the present time, which is share between the older father and the older daughter, and then the other one is daughter's perspective where she cannot understand her dad, and then the third part, which is like the most playful part, is the part where the father is already home, like he miss home, he want to go home, but he every time when the lullaby sings from his mom, like Mamu actually means grandma, so when he every time the calling from the ladies walking by the ocean with the lullaby, he is home. Because I was try to imagine like where is the safest place in your first impression of life? Probably someone trying to hush you to sleep. And that space is actually the most safe. It could go home, and we have the Amis composer actually recomposed the traditional lullaby, so that's where we using the sound as home.
And tell me a bit about the actor who plays the father.
So the actor play both old father and then the younger father. They are actually father and son.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the younger one is actually quite a famous Taiwanese Amis singer. He also composed for films. So he's like won like Golden Horse and Golden Bell. Like he's like a really kind of well-known Amis singer in Taiwan.
What is his name?
Suming Rupi, Sumingen Rupi, and I knew him because I curated the Taiwan Film Festival and I invited him to perform in London. There, I learned about he ran the Amis Music Festival that involved a lot of indigenous people to perform and then to share the music and life together. And then he told me that I said like, you're too young to play the father, so how about your dad? Because he told me about his dad is a sailor, like a seaman. So in his childhood, to sail around the Pacific Ocean from Taiwan is 2 years. So every 2 years he returned.
Okay.
So he's the first kid, and then his sister is 2 years after, and then fourth, is a return. And then if you want to fish in like squid in Argentina, that's 4 years because then you have to cross the canal and you have.
Wow.
So it's amazing that like the life of the time between the parents and kids are kind of calculated because of the job the father took. But also Amis culture, they are a sailor culture from 8,000 years ago. Like in Taiwan, in the coastline, the Amis and the many Pawan, like they sail out to find a new land. So their language is actually as far as you can find it in Rapa Nui, in the Easter Island. They speak similar words, and then in New Zealand, Maui as well. So this Austronesian language was actually related with Amis culture. So I thought like this kind of ocean related, with not just travel on the land. I want to honor that. So when he told me his dad's story, I was like, he will know the solitude of the immigrants. But it's not really immigrants in terms of like, oh, I want to have a move to America, that kind of things. It's just this by accident. You just wanted to, most of the people who left their hometown is they want to find a new, better life for their family. And for the Taiwanese indigenous village, there's no job in the village, so they always have to work in the city in Taipei or city in Kaohsiung. And then if you want to earn more money, you go on the sea. So I think that story kind of echoed as is the difference from the European idea of immigration. Yeah.
Okay. And to tell me a bit, how is Taiwanese cinema right now? How would you describe it?
That's a very big question. I think Taiwan is entering a. Oh, sorry. Taiwanese cinema now is a very big question. I think Taiwan is entering a very exciting time because finally, after Hou Xiaoxian, Edward Yang, even Tsai Ming-liang, we now have a group of new kind of energy coming up, and we're trying to tell our own stories, finding our own identity in the cinema language, not just identity in general. And currently, Taiwan since 1987, like we lifted the martial law, so we are the only place have no censorship in the culture. So we are the only Mandarin-speaking country has no censorship, which I think is an amazing thing. We just have to be brave. But however, like the culture and funding are catching up. So I hope Taiwan right now, we will, maybe in like 1 to 5 years, we will have a lot of new directors coming. And I hope I can be one of them too. I really hope so.
Okay. All right, good. And tell me a bit about your future projects. What are you doing? You seem to be doing a lot of things constantly.
Yes. I think as a filmmaker, you just have to keep rolling. So, like when I made the short film Mamu, because I've been working in film industry in London for more than 10 years, I almost giving up this dream to direct my own film because I feel this is so difficult and I was never able to survive as an individual in a city. So when I make this short film, it's because many people has questioned me, like, can you really direct? So I wrote a long film, which is my first feature film. I was always very curious about how a person to make a foreign country home, and what if this foreign country is now his home and he has a daughter and his daughter didn't know his hometown, how they can share the same home together, the idea concept of homeland. So I wrote the story of that, and I wanted to be fun because a lot of dementia story is always very sad. My short film is not like happy either, but in the feature film, I was able to do more like a road trip style and more adventure onto the culture. So yeah, I'm doing that for expanded version.
And that what you just mentioned that you were shooting in the north of Okinawa, is that about this film or something else?
It's more about coming to this festival from Iceland to here is really expensive. And people, as you know, like festival, probably this should be off records, but festival normally don't support the traveling for the short filmmakers. So I need to do crowdfunding. But I didn't want to do a crowdfunding publicly because the film itself is crowdfunded. So I just talked to my Japanese friends, say, is there any job I could do so I can earn some money here while I'm participate in the festival? They said, we actually want to film the traditional weavers in Okinawa. So if the schedule is okay, then you work for 3 days, and then you can participate. So I combine. I think that's how I survive.
Okay.
I work and then yeah.
So we should put out the word that you're director for hire.
Yes. But it's like it's interesting about like people always have. So it's like you should be grateful and you should be so excited your film is showing a festival. It's actually really difficult to reach the festival if you don't have someone to say we pay for your flights.
Okay, I understand.
So that's why the festival supports 3 nights, and then the rest was the job. So
Okay.
kind of combined. This is so practical. Maybe it's like a DIY for the.
You are a practical person.
I think to not giving up my dream as a filmmaker, I need to be practical because otherwise, can be on the street.
Okay. Good. I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your
I
time.
hope my answer is okay.